You know that moment when someone says, "Oh, don't worry about me, I'm easy," and they really mean it? They don't complain about the restaurant, they don't push back on plans, they don't ask for much. They're just fine, always fine. And people love that about them. Low drama, low effort, low maintenance. But here's the uncomfortable question. When was the last time anyone really checked what you wanted? And when was the last time you even said it out loud? Because being low maintenance feels like a superpower, until you realize it quietly teaches everyone around you that your needs are optional. And yeah, that comes with a cost most people don't notice until years later when the pattern is already baked in. So let's talk about the hidden psychology of being easy, the types of people who end up here, and why this trait that everyone praises can slowly drain you in ways you don't expect. Let's start with the one who learns early that being agreeable keeps the peace. Picture a kid in a house where tension is always in the air. Maybe arguments, maybe unpredictable moods, maybe just emotional chaos. So the kid becomes convenient, doesn't ask for much, doesn't rock the boat, figures out that being flexible gets smiles, not sighs. Fast forward to adulthood, and that same instinct is still running in the background. You say yes to plans you're tired for. You let small things slide. You tell yourself, it's not a big deal. Psychologically, this is conflict avoidance dressed up as kindness. The nervous system learned that discomfort equals danger, so it chooses harmony at any cost. The problem? You don't just avoid fights. You avoid asserting yourself at all. And over time, people don't see you as generous, they see you as adaptable. Which sounds nice, but it also means you're rarely the priority. Maybe you recognize this. You don't want to be difficult. You don't want to be the reason things get awkward, but quietly, a tiny resentment builds, because somehow you're always the one adjusting. And you start wondering, if I stopped being so easy, would anyone stay? Then there's another type, the independent minimalist. This person prides themselves on needing very little. No emotional fuss, no big expectations. I can handle it, is basically their catchphrase. They don't want to rely on anyone, and honestly, they kind of like being the chill one, the strong one, the one who doesn't make things complicated. But here's the twist. Sometimes low maintenance isn't about peace. It's about control. If you don't need anyone, no one can disappoint you. If you don't ask, you don't risk rejection. So you keep your expectations low, your emotions neat, and your vulnerability carefully locked away. Psychologically, this can be a form of emotional self-protection. It's safer to be self-sufficient than to risk needing something and not getting it. But relationships don't deepen on low expectations. They deepen on shared needs, on letting someone show up for you. When you never ask, people assume you don't want support. And slowly, you become the person everyone leans on, but no one really leans back toward. And maybe you tell yourself you're fine with that. But late at night, there's that quiet thought, does anyone actually know what I'm dealing with? Now let's talk about the people pleaser in disguise. Not the obvious apologizing for existing type, the subtle one, the one who says they're low maintenance because they don't want to seem needy, dramatic, or demanding. So they downplay disappointments. They laugh off being forgotten. They say, it's cool, really, even when it's not. Here's the psychological trap. Your brain starts associating love with self-erasure. You feel safest when you're useful, agreeable, and undemanding. And the more you hide your needs, the more invisible they become, not just to others, but to you. You stop checking in with yourself. You stop asking, what do I actually want here? So when something finally does hurt, it hits harder. Because you've been swallowing small disappointments for so long that now it feels like one big emotional bill coming due. And the worst part? People are genuinely surprised when you finally speak up. Because you train them to think you were always okay. Then there's the over-adapter. This person is socially skilled, emotionally intelligent, and great at reading rooms. They can fit into almost any group, any dynamic, any situation. Different versions of themselves for different people. And on the surface, that looks like flexibility, like maturity. But psychologically, this can be a loss of identity in slow motion. When you're constantly adjusting to others, you spend less time asking who you are without an audience. Your preferences blur. Your boundaries soften. You become whoever the moment requires. And eventually, you might feel oddly disconnected from your own life, like you're participating but not really choosing. Being low maintenance here isn't about not needing things. It's about not taking up space. And humans aren't built to be background characters in their own story. And finally, there's the quiet burnout type. The one who gives and gives and gives and doesn't ask for much in return because they don't want to be a burden. They're the reliable friend, the stable partner, the coworker who always says, I've got it. But emotional labor doesn't disappear just because you don't name it. It accumulates in your body, in your mood, in your motivation. And one day, you're not dramatic, you're just exhausted. Disconnected, irritable for reasons you can't quite explain. Psychologically, this happens when self-worth becomes tied to being useful rather than being valued. You feel safest when you're needed, not when you're cared for. So you keep proving your worth through endurance, until endurance becomes depletion. So what's the real cost of being low maintenance? It's not just missed meals or skipped preferences. It's missed emotional experiences, missed chances for deeper connection, missed opportunities for people to show you who they could be for you. When you never make your needs visible, you never learn who is willing to meet them. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Some people benefit from you being low maintenance, not in a villain way, just conveniently. When you don't require much, they don't have to grow much. And over time, that shapes the kind of relationships you end up in. Now, this doesn't mean you should swing to the other extreme and turn every feeling into a press conference. Being high maintenance isn't the goal. Being self-respecting is. There's a difference between constant demands and quiet self-abandonment. Healthy relationships can handle small needs. They can handle preferences. They can handle discomfort. But they can't respond to what they never see. So maybe the real question isn't, am I low maintenance? It's, am I allowed to take up space here? Do you feel safe saying when something matters to you? Do you trust that your disappointment won't be treated as inconvenience? Do you believe that needing something doesn't make you difficult, but human? Because being easy to be with is nice. But being real is what actually builds closeness. So, which type felt uncomfortably familiar? The peacekeeper, the independent one, the subtle people pleaser, the over-adapter, the quiet burnout. Maybe it's not just one. Maybe it changes depending on who you're with. Take a second and think about it. Where did you learn to be low maintenance, and who taught you that your needs were negotiable? If this hit a little close to home, you're not alone. And you're definitely not broken. You just adapted. And adaptation kept you safe once. But it doesn't have to define how you live now. If you want, tell me in the comments which part of this felt most like you, or maybe which one you're trying to unlearn. And if you're into these kinds of psychological deep dives into everyday behavior, you might want to stick around. There's a lot more hiding in the little things we call just how I am.